Welcome back, friends. Now we are going to discuss about expansion and contraction of demand as a continuation aspect of law of demand. Having discussed law of demand, the determinants of law of demand, the exceptions of law of demand, now we move on to the more important stage of understanding what is meant by expansion and contraction of demand vis-a-vis increase and decrease of demand. Well, I can make it as simple as possible and connect it to the graph so that it is much easier to read for you when you listen to this explanation. Keep it simple. Expansion and contraction of demand happens only because of price. That means if there is a change in demand, increase or decrease in demand, it's only because of price, then we say it is expansion and contraction of demand. If there is only price change leading to increase or decrease in demand, then we call it as expansion or contraction of demand. In simple words, let's say the price of a commodity increased from 10 rupees to 15 rupees. What is the logic? If price has increased, the demand should decrease. So the price has increased and demand should decrease. Therefore, I say if the price of the commodity has increased leading to a decrease in the demand of a commodity, then it is contraction of demand. Reverse, if the price is decreased leading to an increase in demand, then we say expansion of demand. I hope you got the point. So whatever we are looking at in terms of graph, please come to page number 2.34. Under that, you have a graph, figure number 3, expansion and contraction of demand. Please see the y-axis, which is marked with price. See the x-axis, which is marked with quantity demanded. At price P, I would have demanded quantity M. At price P, I would have demanded quantity M. But if the price has increased from P to P1, which has gone up, then automatically my demand for quantity is shifted from M to L. Are you able to connect it? If the price is increased from P to P1 in the graph, the demand has decreased from M to L. Reversely, if the price has decreased from P to P2, reverse, I just have explained in a reverse way, P to P2. Either of the scenarios, you can mark it as P1, P2, whatever it is. If the price has decreased from P to P2, then the quantity demanded has increased from M to N. So what are we looking at? Existing price, existing demand of a particular commodity. If the price of the commodity increased, then demand has decreased, which is in line with law of demand, which we call it as contraction of demand. Reverse, if the price of the commodity has decreased, the quantity demanded has increased, which is again in line of the law of demand, but we call it here as expansion of demand. So expansion and contraction of demand has only two variables, that is price and quantity demanded, which means all other things should remain constant. Am I clear about it? Well, then what is the benefit out of understanding this when we already know this? Yes, there is an important issue. When we come down to increase and decrease in demand, there can be possibility that the student can get confused because the words are somewhat similar. Expansion, increase, contraction, decrease, these are similar words, but there is a clear economic differentiation between them. Expansion and contraction of demand is associated with two variables, that is demand and price only, and no other variables. That means all things remaining constant, price increases, demand decreases, price decreases, demand increases, which we call it as expansion and contraction of demand. However, when all things remaining constant undergoes a change, where price has not played its part, price is constant, but the remaining aspects of the other things undergoes a change, let's say income effect or tastes and preferences have undergone a change, due to which there is a change in demand, then we call it as increase and decrease in demand. Let me give you an example. Price of a commodity is this much and quantity demanded is, let's say, this much. Well, price has not undergone a change, your income levels have increased. Because your income levels have increased, your quantity demanded has increased, price being the same, then we call it as increase in demand, not expansion of demand. I repeat again, when price of a commodity is this and quantity demanded is this, income has increased. Due to your income increase, if the quantity demanded has increased where price is still the same, then we do not call it as expansion, but we call it as increase of demand. Second, when quantity demanded is so much and price is so much, quantity demanded is so much, income has decreased, leading to that your quantity demanded has decreased, then we do not call it as contraction of demand, we call it as decrease in demand. Why is this? Price is constant here, other factors have played the game, the other variables which is connected with all things remaining constant leads to increase or decrease in demand. So what are we trying to understand in this? In expansion and contraction of demand, you only get a single demand curve, the slope, only one demand curve, because whatever changes that happens, the changes is between the price and quantity demanded. Vis-a-vis that, when it comes to increase or decrease in demand, since the price is same of the particular commodity, when the income has increased, quantity demanded has increased. When the income has decreased, quantity demanded has decreased. It leads to a separate demand curve by itself. In what are we trying to understand in this? In expansion and contraction of demand, we get a single demand curve. But when it comes to increase and decrease in demand, that is change in quantity demanded due to factors other than price, then we will not have a single demand curve, we will have more than one demand curve. This is further marked in your textbooks through graphs. Let us see that graphs and try to increase our understanding. Come to table number 3, 2 demand schedules of commodity X. I'm reading from the textbook for your understanding. Please have the textbooks right in front of you so that this video gets more meaningful understanding. Case A, price is 5, quantity demanded of X if the monthly income was 20,000 per month was 10 units. But if the monthly income increases to 25,000 in the fourth and fifth column, if you observe, if the monthly income increases to 25,000, the quantity demanded, even though the price was 5 rupees only, it has increased from 10 units to 15 units. I repeat again, please see case A, the price is 5 rupees and in the third column, your monthly income was 20,000, so your quantity demanded was only 10 units. But if you come to fourth and fifth column, you will see when the income has increased from 20,000 to 25,000, what is happening? Your quantity demanded has increased from 10 units to 15 units, but price has remained the same. Which means, what am I trying to tell? Price being constant, other factors, other things constant, in that one of the thing is income effect. If the income has increased, quantity demanded is increased. So we call this not as expansion and contraction of demand, but we call this as increase or decrease in demand. Therefore, I substantiate my point telling that when the price was 5 rupees and your income was 20,000, you have one demand curve, and when the price was 5 rupees, which means price remains constant, and your income has increased to 25,000, you have another demand curve, which means you're getting two demand curves. Continue further. If you analyze the same with case B, price is 4 rupees, income was 20,000 per month, you used to demand 15 units, but when the income has increased from 20,000 to 25,000, your quantity demanded has increased from 15 units to 20 units. So there is an increase of demand of quantity, not because of the price, but because of the increase in income. So we lead to another beautiful graph called, please check the graph given in figure 4. Figure 4, y-axis is marked with price and x-axis is marked with quantity demanded. When I have when I have 20,000 rupees as my monthly income, at 5 rupees, my quantity demanded was point A, that is 10 units. Please understand, when my income was 20,000 monthly at 5 rupees, my quantity demanded was 10 units, which is marked as point A. Similarly, when the price was 4 rupees and my income was 20,000, my quantity demanded was 15 units, marked as point B. Please observe the graph. Similarly, when the price was 3 rupees and my income was 20,000 rupees, my quantity demanded was marked by point C, that is 20 units. Therefore, I develop a graph which is A, B, C, D and E. Connecting these A, B, C, D, E points leads me to D, that is a demand curve, a D0 demand curve. That means one of the demand curves. Now, in continuation with the same explanation of the graph, please see the second case where on y-axis, if my price was 5 rupees, but my income has increased to 25,000, my quantity demanded is 15 units marked by A1. I repeat, where the price is constant 5 rupees, but my income has increased from 20,000 to 25,000 monthly, then my quantity demanded of that particular product is not A, it shifts to A1. That means it is not 10 units, but it is 15 units. Therefore, a new point called A1 is developed over there. Continuation of that, when the price is 4 rupees and the income has increased from 20,000 to 25,000, then the quantity demanded is 20 units marked by point B1. Further, when the price was 3 units, my quantity demanded is 25 units because my income has increased to 25,000. Therefore, it is marked by point C1. So, you connect starting points A1, B1, C1, D1 and E1, you will see a separate demand curve altogether. You will not have the changes in the same demand curve, but you will have a separate demand curve. So the summary is simple. In expansion and contraction of demand, in your demand curve or in the graph, you will have a single slope sloping downwards. But when it comes to increase and a decrease in demand due to factors other than price, that could be an income effect, that could be a taste and preferences effect and what not, we have already discussed, it leads to more than one graph. So how are we going to interpret this graph? I would like to further continue the explanation of this in terms of rightward shift, leftward shift, movement along the demand curve. There are 3 topics that I'm going to discuss now. Please carefully concentrate on this. In expansion and contraction of demand, we get only one demand curve. What do I say? We get only one demand curve because of only 2 variables, price and demand, other factors remaining constant. Since we have only one demand curve, there is upward shift of the demand curve or downward shift of the demand curve. Upward shift means expansion of demand, downward shift means contraction of demand. You're understanding what I'm saying? See, when I'm giving a video, please try and understand. My downward shift could be opposite to you for your understanding. So if let's say you draw a graph like this and you have a sloping demand curve, the downward shift is expansion of demand curve, the upward shift is contraction of demand curve. Further, when we come to income and when we come to increase and decrease in demand curve, as I already told you, you have 2 demand curves. What is that? One demand curve like this, another demand curve like this. That means I am talking about rightward shift, leftward shift. If we are present demand curve is like this and the new demand curve is taken this way, then we say rightward shift leading to increase in demand. When we see the opposite way, well, if your existing demand curve was here and your new demand curve is here, then we call it as leftward shift leading to decrease in demand. So summary, put a graph, you have a single demand curve. If the demand curve has decreased, then we call it as expansion of demand. If the demand curve has sloped upwards, sloping downwards, sloping upwards. If it is sloped upwards, then upward shift. we call it as decrease in demand. If it sloped downwards, then we call expansion, or rather expansion and contraction of demand. If further confusions are there, please recall this video again and again, see it. I am giving it a summary. Draw a demand curve, take the shift, draw a demand curve based on the facts and figures given. If there is a downward movement, we call it as expansion of demand. If there is upward movement, we call it as contraction of demand. Similarly, when we come to increase and decrease in demand, draw a graph, draw the first graph, draw the second graph, that is, draw the first slope, draw the second slope. If the first slope comparatively with the second slope, if second slope has moved rightwards, then we call it as rightward shift leading to increase in demand. Well, the opposite could be also possible. If the present slope and the new slope is leftward shift, then we call it as decrease in demand curve. Am I clear, friends? So what all we understood today is, one, in this session, is expansion and contraction of demand is only because of price. Increase or decreases of demand is due to factors other than price, leading to two simple concepts of graphs. One, in expansion and contraction of demand, you have lower downward shift or upward shift of the same curve. There is no additional curves over there. If there is a downward shift on the same demand curve, we call it as expansion of demand. If there is upward shift of the demand curve, then we call it as contraction of demand. When we come to the second set of graphs, that is increase or decrease in demand due to factors other than price, then we draw the same graph. We have two demand curves, two curves sloping downwards. Well, when we see two curves, we have to see which was your first curve. If the first curve was the former curve and the second curve was the latter curve and it has moved rightwards, then we call it as increase of demand. Or reversely, if the first curve was rightwards and the second curve was leftwards, that is downer, that means it has moved leftwards. Leftward shift is called decrease in demand. So summary, 4 points to remember. Expansion of demand is nothing but downward shift of the slope. Contraction of demand is nothing but upward shift of the slope, which covered itself under expansion and contraction of demand, coming under two variables, price and units only, other factors remaining constant. Then when we draw a graph, if we have two curves, rightward shift is called increase of demand, leftward shift of demand is called decrease of demand, because this is due to factors other than price being constant. I hope this video will clarify all your doubts. If there is any doubt further, please do mail it to lohitacademy@gmail.com. I shall reply back the same. Thank you very much.